Senator Elizabeth Warren is saying the Fed had no choice but to cut rates to protect American jobs. And the senator joins us this morning. She's the lead Democrat on the banking committee. And Senator, welcome. It's good to have you on. I bet you're probably glad about 25, but I know you've argued for even bigger cuts.
Yeah, look, I've been arguing for a couple of years for interest rate cuts. But there's a difference between interest rate cuts that come because the economy is strong, because the job market looks good, and because inflation is headed in the right direction, that is down, and where we are right now. And that is that the job market is weak enough that the Fed felt like it had to go forward, even though the indications on inflation are headed in the wrong direction. I'm reminded that the head of the Fed, Jerome Powell, said last month that the Fed would have cut interest rates back in February, except for the concern over the chaos that Donald Trump was causing to the economy because of tariffs. And so that means we've had, for 7 months now, families paying more on credit cards and car loans and payday loans. And I'm just concerned right now about the economy overall. And I recognize that rate cuts by themselves are not going to fix the problems that Donald Trump is causing.
We had, Senator, I thought about it yesterday when I knew you were going to be on. I asked this question to the leader Jeffries when he was on. I'm going to give you a shot at the same question, and it'll take me about 30 seconds, but I'll be as quick as I can. The inflation rate of 2.9 is still above where the Fed would like it to be, but it was as high as 9% under Joe Biden.
Right.
The labor market may be showing signs of weakness, but unemployment is still 4.3%. Real wages are finally growing. The Dow, the S&P 500, and the NASDAQ are all hitting record highs. We've had major trade deals signed and hundreds of billions of dollars of foreign investment coming into the country, while the southern border is now secure and Iran's nuclear ambitions have been sidetracked likely for years.
Right.
Where is the calamity? What would you point to?
So look, I want to make 2 points here. The first one is the Fed and the rate cuts in the economy is all about direction. And yes, coming out of the pandemic, when Donald Trump was near the end of his first term, we had very high inflation, we had very high unemployment, and that was a problem. But it was down, 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 down on the trend lines. Now, those trend lines have reversed again, and we are seeing more weakening in the job numbers, and we are seeing prices tick back up. Plus, Donald Trump is claiming to have collected billions and billions and billions of dollars in tariff money, and that's going to keep pushing prices up. So the concern is the directionality. The point is the Fed is always trying to look at where the economy is going and trying to direct it. But there's a second point here, too. And I appreciate that Wall Street is doing very well, that we're watching incomes go up for a lot of folks at the top. But you really need to be looking at the numbers for what's happening to the rest of America. Look how big the consumer debt load is right now and how it has grown by $4 trillion over the past 6 years. This is not pandemic money. This is coming out now. More and more families cannot make it to the end of the month without borrowing money. Look at what's happening right now with car loans. More people are in default. More people are seeing their cars taken away. And for a lot of people, that means they can't go ahead and go to work. Look at what's happening to consumer sentiment. People who do the work every day, not the folks who show up to hobnob with the King of England, but the people on the ground here in America who keep this country running. They are telling us that they are not seeing an economy that works. And we need to pay attention to that. We need to have economic policies that are not just made for a handful of people who can afford to pay $1 million for a dinner with Donald Trump or fly over to England and hobnob with the royals. We need an economy that's working for small businesses, working for medium-sized businesses, working for people who do the work of keeping this economy going. And that's where the problem is.
The age-old problem, and I agree with you. It's a cover of the Wall Street Journal today. There really are two economies, but at the same time that we think about what we should spend money on, additional money on, you just mentioned how we're at 37 or 38 trillion, and I think we're at 24% of GDP on spending and 18% on revenues, and that's unsustainable. But when we talk about when you want to raise taxes, and maybe there's something to that, maybe a stepped-up basis or something because we can't get at the billionaires' taxes. But would we try to lower are there other things we can do? We throw so much money at so many problems, and we don't seem to get a lot of return for it. What should we do?
Well, I don't know what you mean by we don't get a lot of return. Look, I think billionaires, yes, ought to be paying more in taxes. I think that right now, the idea that Jeff Bezos pays taxes at the same rate as a Boston public school teacher makes no sense at all. I think the idea that billionaires, really, taxes are optional for many of them because they just borrow against their wealth and then use a stepped-up basis when they die for their families, so taxes never get paid on that. But remember what the Republicans are doing right now. A year ago right now, Donald Trump was saying to everybody who would listen, he would lower costs for American families on day one. On day one. Those were his words. He didn't say he was going to lower costs for billionaires. He said, I'm going to lower costs for your family on day one. And where are we? The cost of groceries is up. The cost of utilities is up. The cost of real estate is up. The cost of health care is up. And what's been the response of the Trump administration? Well, part of it has been the tariffs to drive up costs even more. But the other part, the big signature achievement, has been that the Republicans and Donald Trump have cut health care from 15 million Americans, and they are driving up costs in the healthcare system literally for everyone. Even if you don't have Medicaid, even if you don't have an ACA subsidy, if you have health insurance starting next month, thanks to the Republicans, you will be paying more. And why did they do all that? So that they could give tax cuts to a handful of billionaires. That's not how we make this country work better.
I think everyone, in the original tax cut, everyone did get a cut, maybe more crews to be. Can I ask you about some of your comments last week? It had to do with, I don't know what we should do with the country right now as divided as it is. And both sides, I guess you would argue, share some of the blame. But if we just hear constantly from your side of the aisle, fascist, dictator, rapist, just on and on and on, this incendiary language, don't both sides have to take some of the blame for this environment that we're in terms of, I mean, I don't know what you'd call this where we are in terms of political violence and even assassinations. But do you think, it didn't sound like you wanted to cool the rhetoric when I heard your comments last week.
I'm always glad for people to speak calmly, to speak about facts. I'm very much in favor of that. But the key thing, I want to say it, I can't say it enough. Violence is never the answer. And no one, does make any difference what your political views are, no one should be encouraging violence, because violence is never, ever, ever the right answer.
Senator, I'm going to have to cut you off in a second, not quite yet, but I think President Trump is going to be speaking in Chequers, which is apparently a pretty nice place where Keir Starmer hangs his hat. And we are going to listen in, but if you are willing, you're going to be able to hear any of the comments that the president makes, and then perhaps you can weigh in on it afterwards if you've got the time to wait for that. I don't know how long it's going to be. Is that okay? Or
well, actually, I don't know. I'm not sure I can. But it's always very good to talk to you.
He hasn't started yet. Let me ask you one more question, because you have lobbied the Fed a lot about, and you're very passionate about it, Oh, uh-oh. He is going to start actually right now. So we'll return to that. We'll return to that. And if you're there when we come back.